And the technician guy goes, yeah, I know what I get in my check. It's usually about 34 bucks an hour. So he's thinking this is profit that I put in my trunk and drive away to places like this. but then you have to remind him that, you know, for us, and for the, if you're non-union, you still have an additional cost. We have an agreement with the government where we pay FICA, SUDA, FUTA, and labor taxes and insurance, and that comes to something like a 12%, and they go, okay, I've heard of that stuff. Yeah, workers' comp, that's a benefit for me. So I'll rip that off, and I'll normally hand these pieces to them. This is your money, and then I'll say, okay, and then we're a union contractor, so we pay a certain amount of union benefits to it, and so our union benefits, I think, are like 23 bucks an hour or something like that. And so I'll say, and they're thinking, okay, yeah, well, it's not as big as I thought, but pretty big profit still. And then I'll say, okay, but of this, you do have some accounts out there, some 401k, 401k matching funds, you have retirement funds, and just so you understand, of all these dollars that we're spending, about this amount maybe goes to your account, the rest is going for the training and stuff that you get as a career builder and stuff. So I get them to say, okay, is that profit? And they say, yeah, that's profit. I said, now hold it, we got another thing going on. You come to work every day and you get a truck or a van, and that costs about $7 an hour. And so you peel that off, and they go, okay, and that's kind of a perk, right? You don't have to drive like other people drive. And then I'll say, okay, and then you have some other things. You have a uniform, you have a phone, you might have a laptop, computer, and you kind of rip that off, and they don't look at that as something that goes in the pocket. We'll put this as a cost. So you're ending up with around 35% or so of a traditional $100 bill that you're going to bill your customer. You say, so that's profit. And they go, yeah. So, but you get your paycheck every week, don't you? Yeah. Gotta pay payroll. I like to get my check. I get a check as well. And then you have other people, whether they're supervisors and stuff, and you have any idea how much that is. And, you know, overhead was more like $1 when we first started. You know, I had that 70% there. That's usually what they thought overhead was. But I'll ask them, how much is overhead? And, you know, if you were to ask people here generally, is it 10? Do you know what your company's overhead is? Anybody? 20? And it'll range in our industry, in the service industry, it can go as high as 30%. You'll see that it hunkers around 20%. And so you go, okay, that's overhead, that's paying the office, and that's getting the salespeople out there to find you some new work and to do that kind of stuff. We'll say, so now that ends up in my truck, right? My trunk. And they'll go, yeah. I said, but stop, there's more. Sometimes we do some things that are investments into your career yourself, where things like this, we decide to send you off and do something a little bit, and or maybe we have a fun event around the company where we call it, you know, picnics or holidays or other things like that aren't related to the day-to-day. That's just fun. I said, that's not a whole lot. And they're going, okay, yeah. And so you peel some of that off, and then I said, okay, now that is my profit. And they go, yeah. I said, so we have one last deal. The government takes away about 35% of that in terms of taxes. And so that's the profit that you have left. And so when we're talking about what goes out of that $100 and what is left for the owners, and I said, and typically, I said, I'll ask him, I said, how much do you like to get on you all have retirement accounts? And I said, and I'll ask him, I'll say, how much do you get in your retirement account? How much did it make last year? 6%. What would you like to do? 10%. I said, here's 5%. We may have millions of dollars into the company, we're getting a 5% return, and the chance of it disappearing is huge and quick. And so they said, that's what's at risk every day, and it doesn't take a whole lot to improve, and it doesn't take a whole lot. One compressor, one job failure, one disaster, and this just goes away. Just not enough work or something, that just disappears. So I think it helps them see, kind of like where that $100 that they just can't appreciate. So like I said, this all ends up typically in the trash can because it's hard to put together.